Alright, hi guys, I'm back. Third video, last video. Don't worry, the past few videos you're like, oh, this is so boring. I'm pretty sure like half of you guys who are watching this right now probably A, haven't seen this, like my past two videos, and B, have kind of skimmed around. I mean, I would actually not even watch the entire video, just skim around just to see where we're going. But this is the last video, alright? So this is going to be the last one, and I'm doing this, just a reminder, this isn't necessarily supposed to, like, it's not a direct study guide. This doesn't necessarily correlate with what Mr. Lammers wants you to know, or Ms. Schumacher, or whatever. But this does work because it teaches you like I keep saying, the flow of history, but it gives you, basically, it tells you when things are going to happen. It lets you know which parts of history, what happened, who's involved, when did this happen, and you know, this will not only I feel in this video will not only serve you for the history final. It will actually serve you for the future. So this is why I'm doing this. And so alright, hope you enjoyed this video. Here we go. So as you can see, I called it Radical New Ideas. So that's basically what we're talking about. We're going to talk about the Catholic Reformation. We're going to talk about the Age of Exploration. We're going to talk about the Scientific Revolution. We're going to talk about the Age of Enlightenment, and we're going to talk about the French Revolution. Alright? Now, it seems like a lot, but actually, this is probably, I think this is the shortest script I've ever had, so let's see how this goes. Alright, Catholic Reformation. So I left off at the last video, kind of leaving you on edge, if you haven't noticed, but basically the Catholic Reformation was all about, hey, we are losing all these reformers to the Protestant Reformation. No, now we don't have, like, we're losing followers quickly to Martin Luther and John Calvin and all these other people. So what can we do? So they decide to kind of reform their Catholic doctrines. So they have the Council of Trent, where they decide to create ways to stamp out heresy and to create the blueprint for the Catholic Reformation. And so, among one of the best parts about the Catholic Reformation, it's also called the Counter-Revolution, if you want to know that. Counter-Revolution. So you have the Jesuits. So you have this guy named Ignatius of Loyola. And in 1540, he founded the Society of Jesus. Now, no one goes like, are you part of the Society of Jesus, like, on the street? You would just say, are you a Jesuit? That's what they were called, Jesuits. They basically, they were known for being intellectuals. They did missionary work to convert non-Christians. I believe, don't take this, you didn't hear this from me, but I think they volunteered to go on the New World, to convert the natives. But anyway, so they also founded many colleges. So that's a pretty big impact. If you're doing this for your essay, this is a really important thing because, you know, now colleges are starting to pop up everywhere and people are becoming more educated and more literate and all these things. Also, side note, they were also considered pretty good exorcists, like, you shall be pure from the devil or whatever, you know. I love that movie, but anyway. Pope Paul III approves of the Jesuits, so that's good. Now they're free to go. Pope Paul is also known for his Index of Forbidden Books, where it's like you can, no Christians allowed to read this, no Christians allowed to read that, and whatever, and basically it's like, yeah, it's just what it says, it's forbidden books. So after the entire Revolution, Reformation, all that stuff, after all that, the effects are, so the Protestant churches start to flourish. And they're, and this kind of makes sense because they had looser policies, and they had ideas about, like, you know, sola fide, and these ideas that you know, really appealed to the common person. Also, religion no longer unites Europe. Before, everyone was Catholic. So that was good until, you know, all got ruined. And so now you're like, I'm Protestant, or I am Catholic, or I am etc. All Presbyterian. Like, you have so many denominations of Protestantism. You also have the decline in church power. So we do see this a lot in history where religious figures are the arch enemies of government leaders. So you have the king versus the pope in this one. So now, before, the king had to obey the pope, So like when I talked about last time the feudal system, I bet. You had like, you know, peasants, then knights, then lords, then you had the king. Well, if you were to add one more, the Pope would be there. All kings must, basically had to answer to the Pope. There was no butts, no cuts, no coconuts. You had to. But now, since everything's falling apart with the Great Schism, the Black Death, and the Reformation, all these things are falling apart, and the church is losing a grip on the people, and so this causes for the people to start relying more on their political leaders. Okay, so that's that. Now we're going to talk about the Age of Explorations. Another radical idea. What about if we see another world? Possible? Let's see. Alright, so we first have the three motives. Now, Mr. Lammers basically simplifies this to God, gold, glory. So I'm going to analyze each of those individually. So, God. Now, basically, it wasn't the primary thing. Like, people weren't going like, I'm gonna Christianize all the natives. Let's go. Like, no, it was really for like the gold and the glory. But the God thing just kind of made it more moral. Like, it had a moral aspect, and it was also like for the sake of God and the heavens. And so they did this. This was partially successful in some places, in other places not so much. Then you also have gold. So people wanted gold, but more importantly, they wanted spices. So this entire age of exploration is spawned. There we go, spawned. Anyway, it's created because they want to get to India and Asia, and they want to get to the spice lands, and they were very valuable to the Europeans. So they started making different ways to get to it. So when they mean gold would be nice, but preferably spices. Alright? They also say glory. So glory means, you know, I am whatever. I conquered this place, and I do it for the name of Spain, and Spain's the best country in the world, and we are we're the most macho people in the world. Take that, everyone else. That's basically what the glory was. They really just loved that sort of sense of pride for your country, pride for yourself, pride for what you're doing. That's really what the glory is. So now, all this is nice, so it's like you have that interest, but now you need to figure out a way to get there. So luckily there's technology that helps them with this. So when we have the caravel. So the caravel is this new type of ship that, so before you would see ships with sails like this, kind of like that, or better like that. That's what really the sails looked like. But now they the caravel, what it allowed them, they used triangle masts. So like you would often see that with another triangle mast, maybe a third triangle mast. Well, no, this one's kind of small, but whatever. These masts allowed them to go against the headwind. So before, when you wanted to go somewhere, you had to hope the wind was in your favor. If the wind wasn't blowing the way you wanted to, you ain't going nowhere. But now, you're allowed to go wherever you want because the caravel allows you to go through the headwind. So basically you can go anywhere you want as long as there's water. Well, except rivers and stuff. But ocean-wise, that's great. You also have the astrolabe, which is basically using the stars, looking up, identifying the stars, seeing their patterns, aligning them up with the land in front of you, and being able to navigate based on that. So that's why the astrolabe was really popular. Basically, they used the North Star. The North Star was the most important, Polaris, if you will, but it was the most important star that the explorer used to navigate. So that's why it's important. You also have the rudder. So, if you're a kid and you're watching a pirate movie or whatever, actually you would have to be a bit older, but whatever. You're watching a pirate movie and you see the captain and he's spinning the wheel and you're like, but how? They don't have technology like that. Like, they don't have electronics. How do they control the boat by just turning the wheel? It's all very simple. It's because they had the rudder. So the rudder was this kind of flap at the end of the boat, where if the captain had the steering wheel, and the captain would turn it one way, and the rudder would go, so the ship would turn the direction that the captain wanted to. So it was really important. You also have the compass, and the compass is from China. 谢谢中国. Thank you, China. And basically, the compass had magnetic properties, so it would find the North Pole, and therefore you could kind of go based on if you had a map and you knew where you were going. And maps brings me to my final technological improvement. You had cartography, and cartography literally means map making. Basically creating maps. So people started creating maps and making they were more interested in identifying places, and this would be key, to exploring. Like you would know where the hell you are. Sorry if I'm cursing, but whatever. Deal with it. So that's basically all the technological advances. So now we get to the first adventuring country, and that's Portugal. So this kind of makes sense because if you have a map of Europe, Portugal is the country that's most to the west, I would say, and so therefore it kind of makes sense that Portugal wants to explore. Now, the most important person at this time for exploring was Henry the Navigator. Now, Henry the Navigator, oddly enough, didn't navigate. But what he did is he set up schools. He wanted to make Portugal a central hub for all exploring. So he made schools. He rose a team of sailors to go explore. So that was good. And so Henry the Navigator is also responsible for setting up West African trading spots. So already Portugal's sort of making money off of exploring without even getting to Asia. And they even trade with North African Muslims. So that's good. Muslims are at this time really good at trading, and they're basically having the time of their lives by trading and making a lot of money off of this. So Portugal has the goal to get to Asia. Thing is, they need to get to Asia. They want to, but how are they going to do it? So they get this first guy named Bartolome Diaz, and Diaz, good try. He goes. I'm going to draw Africa because that's the only way I'm going to explain it. So here you have Europe, little Italy, little stuff right there, Corsica and Sardinia, whatever, and you have England, whatever. Okay, all that stuff, fluffy. Okay, here's Africa. Well, that's really sad. Africa, maybe? I don't know. There, I'm just going to call that Africa. Saudi Arabia. Okay. India and China, Japan. Okay. Actually, that's not that bad. Okay, actually, it's that bad. Whatever. So basically, Diaz was going. He went here back to the trading posts, and he goes here. He stops here, and there's a huge storm, and there's no way for him to actually proceed. It's too risky, so he goes all the way back. So nice try, and he goes around the Cape of Good Horn, but he couldn't really. So you think that's the end for Portugal, but you have an even more important and more famous explorer named Vasco da Gama. And da Gama goes from Portugal, and he goes basically where Diaz went, but actually he makes it, and he goes around, sets up trading ports here, goes around, gets to India, and is the first European to reach India. So good for da Gama. So finally he gets there. So now Portugal is actually making money off of exploring, and they're actually trading spices and getting money, and they're getting rich really quickly. So if you ever have siblings, if one sibling, especially the younger one, if the younger one's making more than you, the older one's gonna have issues. So Portugal, I like to call him his older brother, Spain. Spain's the older brother, and Spain's like, man, what are we doing? My little bro down there is making a lot of money. Need to do something to do that, to do stuff and make the money even more. So they get in trouble. So they're in trouble, and they're like, how are we gonna do this? A young Italian guy, we think, named Christopher Columbus comes along and says, I've got a plan. So now, a few myths to dispel. So everyone says that people laughed at Columbus because his idea involved that the world was flat. That's not true. Everyone knew that the world was round ever since Aristotle. So he just basically said, alright, the Portuguese have developed a way to get to India right here. Well, what if we go around the globe and we'll just kind of make it back here? Huh? Pretty genius idea. Well, he forgot one small detail about this idea. that there's an entire no, there's two entire continents here, North America and South America. So he thinks he's getting to Asia, but whatever. So he goes and he says, please, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, he's like, please, can you let me have ships to go explore? I'll make you money. And they're like, no. All right, sure. All right, we'll let you. So that's good it's good for Spain and good for Columbus. So that's good. So they go in 1492. Columbus sailed the ocean blue. He gets to America. He thinks it's India. That's why he calls everyone the Indians, and the name sort of stuck. He gets to the Bahamas and he goes to Cuba. Cuba, by the way, he thinks is Japan. He thinks it's Japan. So he's like, Konnichiwa, yeah, and they're like, what the hell are you talking about? So basically, he thinks he's in India, or like Japan and Asia, but he's not, nowhere close. So he gets there, and he makes 4 voyages, and so, when I said about God, gold, and glory, well, okay, so, God. Let's talk about God. So he gets some priests and people to come, and he says, all right, you guys stay here, populate the island. I'm gonna be back with another larger group of Europeans. And the guys are like, okay, we're gonna stay here. That's cool. And then they get eaten. They suffer from cannibalism. And when they get back, it turns out the natives are more violent than Columbus had expected. So he's like, okay, I don't want them to get mad at me. So I'm just not gonna make them Christian. I'm just gonna leave them alone, let them do their own little Indian religion stuff. I'll just let them do what they need to do. So there we go. So God's out. In North America, which is where he was, and Central America, you didn't get gold. Gold was not in. Spices, not really. So gold is out, and glory. Well, yeah, but. I mean, is that really enough to make the king and queen pay for a 5th voyage? I don't think so. When he comes back, he brings back a lot of exotic animals, and this is what Ferdinand and Queen Isabella have to say. F you, man. F you. Ring finger, by the way. He basically say, you suck. Why are we paying you to do this? You're just wasting our money and time, so we're just going to throw you in jail. And Columbus goes to jail. He's arrested, and that's the end of that. So that kind of sucks. Before he goes to jail, Columbus enslaves the natives, alright? And he thinks this is going to work, you know, they're slaves, and if they don't bring him back enough gold, then he's going to kill them, and he even sells little girls at the age of 8 to sexual slavery. So even when that happens, Bartolome de las Casas comes and says, man, these Indians, they're dying quickly. So the work's too much for them. So they start dying, and Bartolome de las Casas is like, okay, we need to do this to save the natives. Where are we going to get the other slaves? Let's go to Africa. Africa has stronger slaves, so they do, and they go to Africa, and therefore we have the African slave trade. Thanks a lot. Whatever. Actually, not whatever. That's actually not a good thing. So we have that. So other explorers. So now they know, okay, new continent. What are we going to do? So you get Magellan in 1521. He circumnavigates the globe. And although he does it because he dies along the way. But whatever, you know, we give him credit for it. You have Hernan Cortés. And Cortés goes and he basically destroys the Aztec Empire, which was under the rule of Moctezuma II. And it didn't end well for Moctezuma or the Aztecs. The capital Tenochtitlan was taken over, and that's not good because yeah. But anyway, if it makes you feel, the happy ending is that from the ruins of Tenochtitlan comes Mexico City. So anyway, Pizarro, Francisco Pizarro goes to Peru and basically does the same thing with the Incans ruled by Atahualpa. And that, again, doesn't end well, and there's not really a happy ending, but whatever. So Spain easily gets money from this. Now, in South America, there is gold. Actually, in one cathedral in Italy, the ceiling is purely decorated from the gold that they got from the Incan Empire. And so, Spain's getting richer and richer, and now it's safe to say that Spain has dominated everyone else. Spain's the richest. Spain owns the most land now, the most colonies. So that turns out that's pretty good for Spain. So now the effects. So there's a lot of tension between Portugal and Spain. So now Portugal says, okay, I can't believe you tried getting to Asia. I mean, even though you failed miserably, we got there first. You cannot touch Asia. And the Spanish are like, okay, then you can't get to America. And the Portuguese are like, what? We can totally get to America. We are totally allowed to. So they settle it by going to the Pope, and Pope Alexander VI says, okay, I'm going to draw a line, and basically, this is what I'm going to do. I need to draw North America and South America. Alright, I'm just going to draw, okay, America with Canada, I don't know. Here's America, here's Mexico, here's Central America, this is South America. I'm going to change that before I get insulted by everyone for drawing something that's pretty close to something else. Okay, South America. Okay. Whatever, just leave it, you know, whatever. Okay, so, this is Brazil. So basically he says, I'm going to draw a line right here, and this is Brazil. Here, I'm going to draw a line right here. Now, Portugal, you can gain access to Spain by going this way. This is where Portugal can go. Spain, you can get all of this. So they agree to this. This is called, the line is called the line of demarcation, and the treaty that Portugal and Spain agreed to is called the Treaty of Tordesillas, or if you really can't remember it, just go with the Lammer way of doing it, which is tortilla. What else do you need to know? That happened in 1494. Alright, so that's the exploration part. So while we're already getting 2 parts down, so now we have a few more things to go. Alright, so now we're going to talk about the scientific revolution. Alright? So this was in 1550, around, and Mr. Lammers, I'm going to quote his definition for the scientific revolution. It is a new way of thinking about the natural world based upon careful observation and a willingness to question accepted belief. So basically, they're just saying, why does this happen? Why does that happen? Is that really what really happens? Let me explore that. Maybe it doesn't. Okay, that's cool. That's basically what's going on. Before 1500, everyone believed the Bible, Aristotle, and Ptolemy. So basically, what's in the Bible comes first, and it is supported by what Aristotle and Ptolemy say. Now, just to refresh, everyone knows who Aristotle is, but if you don't know who Ptolemy is the guy who basically said, Aristarchus, you're wrong, the geocentric theory is true. That'll play a role later in this video. Okay. So, we have the geocentric theory. And that is, basically, for a lack of a better way of explaining it, Earth is at the center of the universe, and the sun and all the other planets go around it. Now, we know that's not true because of modern science. So thank you, modern science. I love you. But so why do people believe this? Well, the Bible said it. The smartest people in the day, or not in the day, back then, not even back then, like before then, Aristotle and Ptolemy, they said it was true. And also, 2 other reasons. One, why would God create a universe where the Earth is the center of the universe? I mean, humans are the most important creatures that He made. They were made in His own image. So why would they have to not be the center of the universe, and they would just have to be going around the stupid ball of fire? So that's what people thought. They also thought, it doesn't make sense. I mean, we just see the sun going this way, so we're not moving. We're just seeing the sun move. So that's what they thought about. So the first guy in this time to question this is Copernicus, Nicholas Copernicus, and he wrote a book called On the Revolution of the Heavenly Bodies in 1434, and people call him a coward, and I'll explain why. Because he says, one, it's only a theory. It's not a fact. I'm not opposing the church. I'm just proposing a radical new idea. Oh, radical new idea. Yeah. A radical new idea. And I could be wrong. That's perfectly fine. The church is probably right. And even though he didn't really think that, he was just like, I'm right, but I'm just going to stay out of the church's little zone there. And he publishes this before he dies, sadly, when the church goes, hey, wait a minute! This guy's opposing us! He's already dead, so you can't really do anything about that. Another thing, so another person to be involved in this is a guy named Tycho Brahe. And he is a wealthy man. He builds an observatory. He charts data about the stars and planets. He doesn't make an analysis necessarily, or at least he doesn't publish it. And he's just looking. He does that. It's also he got his nose chopped off in a duel, so he has a gold nose. It's kind of funny. But anyway, then Kepler comes along. He sees Tycho Brahe's data, and he says, "Okay, I'm gonna make some analysis of this. Okay, this is true. That's true." So he basically says he supports the heliocentric theory, and he also he's the one to say that an orbit, which is basically like the stuff around a planet. He basically says the orbit is an ellipse. Now, if you don't know what an ellipse is, I don't blame you. You'll learn this in 10th grade about ellipses, and you'll go through the same struggle that we 10th graders have gone through. And it's basically just an oval, but a mathematically calculated oval, where like this is equidistant from that, and that's equidistant from that, whatever. I'm not sure, but that's basically what an ellipse is. And so that's what he said. Basically, this is where a planet is. That's the orbit. So that makes so he goes with this. He's also the one who says, all right, God created the universe in a mathematical way, so everything works just perfectly and can be explained within mathematics, logic, reason, and science. So that's what he believed in. So, and it's, I don't know. I'm just gonna leave that alone for now. Then you have Galileo, and his dates are from 1564 to 1642, and so Galileo was already known for being a very hardcore scientist. He worked with the laws of nature in terms of he worked with motion. So he had a famous experiment where he went to Pisa. He went to literally on the Leaning Tower of Pisa, or I'm not sure if it was leaning at the time, but whatever. So he went to the Tower of Pisa, and he took a feather, and he took a hammer, and basically that's what So that was he's famous for doing that. He basically hypothesized that if oxygen was taken out, or if there wasn't any oxygen or any air resistance, wind resistance, whatever, then the hammer and the feather would fall at the exact same time. So, and this was actually proved when the astronauts went to the moon in 1960, or not in 1960, just when they went to the moon. They took a hammer and a feather, they dropped it, landed at the exact same time. So he's also famous for building his own telescope, and he looked at the stars, and this leads him to write a book called The Starry Messenger, and that was written in 1610, and basically he talks about supporting the heliocentric theory. And the church hears about this and says, Galileo, we officially warn you, you have to stop this. You have to stop talking about these weird things, these weird ideas, or we will get you. And Galileo's like, alright, yeah, so what? So he writes a second book, and this book is even more famous. It's dialogue concerning the two chief world systems, and it's actually a dialogue between two people. One person supporting the geocentric theory, another person supporting the heliocentric theory. And it's just a conversation, and it's kind of like a debate. And what really gets the church upset is that Galileo kind of makes the characters, makes the geocentric theory person seems stupid, and he gets the heliocentric dude to basically insult the geocentric dude and say anyone who believes in the geocentric theory is stupid. So the church is not happy about this. Urban the Eighth, who is a really good friend of Galileo, is pressured to say, Galileo, you have been summoned by the Holy Roman Catholic Church to go to the Inquisition, and we can't. So Galileo's sent there, and he's pressured, and they say you have to take back what you said, and Galileo says, all right, I take it back, all right, the Earth moves, the Earth doesn't move, the Earth is just the center of the universe, so fine, all right, the geocentric theory is correct. So Galileo kind of does that, and then he famously does, right when he's leaving, he says, but it moves, saying, like, basically taking back everything he just said, so that's kind of cool. But he's put under house arrest, which basically means you cannot leave for the rest of your life. You cannot leave your house for the rest of your life. That kind of sucks. But he's still, like, you know, he keeps his views to himself, and he still believes in the heliocentric theory. He knows he's right. And so that's good. In fact, after he died, someone thought it would be really funny to go to Galileo's tomb, cut off his finger, and give it to the papacy as saying, remember this? This is the finger. This is the guy who said, but it moves. So in your face, church. So that's what really happens. So now we're going to talk about the scientific method. So I'm just going to say this. It's basically make an observation, define the problem, propose a hypothesis, gather evidence, accept or reject the hypothesis, and that will eventually lead you to create a theory. So that's the scientific method, and it comes from two types of reasoning, and I'll explain that. So you have this guy in 1626. His name is Francis Bacon, and he says he supports inductive reasoning, and that basically means by seeing a repetitive action or just by observing, you are able to make a deduction. You're able to basically explain something. I can't think of inductive reasoning off the top of my head. Ask your teachers; they love this stuff. Maybe it's kind of like if John goes into the if John goes into the room to eat a sandwich, then basically if another person, and you see that, if another person goes into the room, you can automatically assume that they're going in to eat a sandwich. That's basically inductive reasoning. That's a pretty good example. Proud of myself. Anyway, so that's what happens. So that's one part of the scientific method. And then another dude in 1650, his name is René Descartes. And Stella, if you're watching this, thank you. She says I look like René Descartes, so thank you. And okay. René Descartes believes in deductive reasoning. So he basically says you cannot accept. You have to give up everything, forget everything you know, and only accept that belief only if you can scientifically, mathematically prove it, and logically and with reason. So that's really it. And he's also famous for he's the guy who says, I think, therefore I am. And that has been coined like so many times. Like my mom has this poster, it says, I read, therefore I am. So thank you, Renee. Anyway, so yeah, Renee was really smart, really awesome dude. So now we're going to talk about one last guy, and then we move on from the scientific revolution. And we're going to talk about Isaac Newton. And Isaac Newton is a beast. He is so awesome, man. Okay, he has so many ideas about different areas of science. So he's famous for his idea of gravity. You know, gravity brings everything to the ground. And some places have more gravity and some places have less gravity. He also worked with optics in terms of light and reflection, and basically I think you can see the reflection in this, but whatever. He published a book called The Principia in 1687. And he also creates calculus. Well, he's a co-creator. He kind of created it with and another guy from a different area also created it. So there's a bit of argument about who created it first or who has a better way of doing it. you'll often hear Isaac Newton, his name will be Sir Isaac Newton, and you think, oh, because of his mathematical studies, he will, and for gravity and all that stuff, he obviously must have been knighted. He gets knighted for a different reason, and that's because he becomes an accountant, and he basically punishes counterfeiters and people who abuse the flowing of money. So he gets knighted for that. And he also takes a look at planetary motion. And he kind of agrees with what Kepler believes. He says that God is like a clockmaker. He makes the clock work in perfect order, and the clockmaker leaves the room and lets the clock operate on his own. So it basically says God created the universe in such mathematical harmony, and then he left it alone. So this, that's basically that. So now we're going to talk about the Enlightenment. So we just got rid of 3 subjects. So now we're going to go through 2 more. All right. So the Enlightenment. So people kind of believe, the intellects kind of believe that the scientific method, although called scientific, could be applied for much more than just science. So people start, and this is especially useful in government and how you think about government and what should government do. So you have this, and this was held in Paris. Paris was the hub for the Enlightenment. It was actually, I'm not sure if this, I'm not sure if it's still on the summer reading list, but basically, it's called 6 Classes of History, or the history of the world in 6 classes. And it says that coffee houses were places where the intellects met, and they had a cup of coffee, and they kind of talked with everyone, and they discussed ideas, they debated, and it was really good. So coffee, pretty useful. So anyway, we have Thomas Hobbes, and in 1651 he writes Leviathan, and Leviathan's a sea monster, but more than that, he basically says humans need a leader. All right, we need a government, and we need that government to basically take control every aspect of our lives, because without government, there's chaos. This is sort of like what happens in Lord of the Flies by William Golding, where a group of schoolboys are on an island and they try to create a government where everything works out in social harmony, but end up killing each other and basically becoming savages. So that's what Thomas Hobbes was like, and he basically said he also develops a social contract theory, which is if you have the government and the people give up all their rights, and the government should protect the people. That's really it. And so you can already tell, like, Thomas Hobbes is like very pessimistic about humans. He calls them naturally evil and naturally desiring of they're naturally greedy, naturally envious, naturally 7 deadly sins. So basically, he really didn't like them. He really thought humans were just like devils. So that's Thomas Hobbes. Then you have John Locke, and John Locke, I love this dude. He's such an angel. Anyway, John Locke, he is optimistic on humans. He really believes that humans are naturally good, or at least have the potential of being good. So he has his main idea called the blank slate, where I'm just gonna basically erase this because this is sort of a slate. So what you learn. You learn math. You learn math. 1 + 1 = 2. You learn that. You learn history, Napoleon. You know about science. You know about English and the Bible and Jesus and all these things. And by the end of your life, your blank slate. When you're born, you don't know anything. And by the end of your life, your blank slate will be filled with all this sort of information. Now, what also makes this, I really support this theory, and what also I believe is that, and what he believed is that opinions kind of worked, kind of fell into place. Like heliocentric theory, it was an opinion at the time, but also, unfortunately, racism could be part, or I must do crime to support my family or to support myself. So really, basically, by learning, you are influenced by others where your character changes. So you have the potential to do something good, but you also have the potential to do something bad. in this contrast with Hobbes, because Hobbes said humans will never be good. They're never good. They are always evil. He's a kind of a jolly kid. Also, John Locke had an idea. He basically had 3 natural rights, and that was life, liberty, and pursuit. No, just kidding. Property, life, liberty, and property. You know, those two, the first 2 terms are really famous because Thomas Jefferson basically took it. He basically just plagiarized and said life, liberty, like kind of like this. I'm pretty sure he did it like this. Like, okay, there should be life, there should be liberty, property. We don't need the property. Let's just go with pursuit of happiness. So like, it was. I mean, I don't think Thomas Jefferson would like get in trouble for that. Well, I don't think he did. So that's what happened there. And John Locke also said that these are the 3 natural rights. You cannot take them away from each individual person. Every single person in the government, in the society, has this right. And if the government fails to protect them by taking them away or letting others, abuse them, then the people have the right to revolt and replace the government with a new government that will just serve the purpose of protecting the natural rights. Other people kind of get involved in the Enlightenment. You have Diderot, who made the first encyclopedia. You have Voltaire, who was a deist, which basically is similar to what Kepler and Newton believed, where God created the world, but then he left, and it's up to humanity to survive on its own. Montesquieu is another guy, and he's famous for his views on government, especially that government should have three branches. And you can see where I'm going with this: legislative, executive, judicial. And so we actually took this in our government. So now we have that. You also have David Hume, who was an atheist, and he said that the belief in God is just mere superstition. Thanks. Anyway, so now we talk about the last part of our history sessions. Kind of makes me sad. Anyway, alright. So we have the French Revolution. Now, if you're worried about your essay or your vocab, don't watch this. You can kind of skip later, alright? Because I have some final words for you all. But if you really want to know the story, or if, Mr. Lammers, I hope you're watching this where, like, you would actually let me publish, not let me publish, let your future students watch this, because I would be really honored. If you're doing this, can you then yeah, I can totally teach this to them. So here we go. French Revolution. So, what's happening in the late 1700s? Well, the Americans just won a war. They won a war against Britain, and America's best ally? France. And that's good for everyone else, because France really doesn't like Britain. France and Britain have a history of not liking each other. But now France is poor. First of all, Louis XIV spent so much money on the 7 Years' War, or if you're an American, that's the French and Indian War. I'll get to that never actually, but you can just look that up. So you have that, and Louis XV, isn't really popular because he also can't manage money, and then Louis XVI come along, and things are not turning out well. So now France is bankrupt from the 7 Years' War and the American Revolution, so that's kind of sucky. So now the people are poor, and everyone's poor, and so at this point in France there are 3 classes. You have the first estate. These are all called estates, not classes, 3 estates. The first estate are the nobility. The second estate are the clergy, and the third estate are commoners. Commoners literally means they're kind of they kind of represent the people, so that's good. But right now everything's sucky. So the king, Louis XVI, is like, okay, I need to figure out a resolution to this. So he says, I'm going to call an Estates General, which is basically a meeting of all 3 estates. And so the commoners are like, oh yes, this is great. This will help us in so that way we don't have to. So that way we can end poverty for the commoners, or for the common people. So this is great. Now it would seem great because the commoners are the the commoners represent 98% of the people, but unfortunately they only have one vote. So does the clergy has one vote, and nobility has one vote. So basically this is kind of rigged that way. If the commoners want any social mobility, they can't, because they'll always get outnumbered by 2-1, because the clergy and nobility are not going to let them get any political power. So basically the commoners are like, okay, let's start reforming our government. And then the clergy and nobility are like, no, we're not letting you. We don't want you to reform. We like our political power. We'll just let you guys suffer, but we'll be okay. So the commoners are like, this sucks. This really sucks. This is not nice. F you. F everyone. You know what? We're gonna quit this little thing. We're gonna quit the effing king, and we're just gonna make our own little party. And this is called the National Assembly. And so the National Assembly goes, and they start meeting, and King Louis XVI is like, I'm not worried. Let's just lock them out of the room so that way they can't meet in where we're gonna meet. So among the most influential people is Robespierre, and Robespierre is Maximilien Robespierre, and he's kind of like a lawyer, a very good orator, and so he gets the commoners and people, and he go to a nearby tennis court, and they make the famous tennis court oath, where they swear that they will stay together and they will try and reform the French government so everything is fair and everyone gets equal rights, and yes, vive la France! Sorry, nerd moment there. So basically that's what happens, and they make the slogan Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité. So now the people are like, okay, the king is kind of pissing us off, so we're just gonna have to go take matters into our own hands. So they first go, they get guns, they get all these things, and they're missing gunpowder and more guns, and they know one place to get that. So they go on July 14, 1789. They go storm the Bastille. They kill the guards. They make a new tradition where they got the governor of the Bastille. They cut off his head and they put it on a pike and showed it to everyone. So that was a famous thing that they did. So the Bastille was, and after the battle was over and the revolutionaries won, they literally took down the Bastille brick by brick. And giving one of those Bastille bricks to someone else was kind of like a sense of, we did it. We actually did it. We were able to basically spit in the face of the king, and they couldn't do anything because we beat them. So it was really awesome for the revolutionaries. So now there's a revolution going on. And they make the Declaration of Rights of Man. And this is basic Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen. And basically this is about this is basically a list of rights that every single person can have. Well, maybe a couple exceptions, but basically all men are free and equal, and they have all these individual rights that cannot be taken away, and this is all great. And it was made in 1789, that same year, in August. And so basically now people are like, okay, we've already done the Bastille, so why don't we just get rid of the king and queen? So there were so many riots that went on. You know, a bunch of peasant women literally stormed into Versailles, and they tried to kill Marie Antoinette. And by the way, she never actually said, "Let them eat cake." She never said that, unfortunately. You know, it would be probably one of the best quotes ever. Anyway, so they eventually get the king and queen to leave Versailles. They destroy the palace. They make them go to Paris, and this is a good political move for the revolutionaries, because now the king and queen are kind of like trapped in Paris, and they don't have any political power. They can only just stay in a palace called the Tuileries Palace. And you don't need to know that. But anyway, everyone is their new revolutionary figures like Robespierre. You have Marat, who's a newspaper printer who basically gives off a list of people who he thinks are traitors to the revolution, and they're guillotined. So that's kind of sucks for them. And so many things happen, and the king and queen are eventually tried, and they are convicted of guilt, and they are executed. And some of these crimes, like for example Marie Antoinette, she was accused of having incest with her son, even though they knew that was totally bogus, that wasn't true at all, but they decided to place it on her so that they could just kill her. And so she died, and he died, and that was kind of sad for them. The National Assembly basically they declared war on Austria because they thought, we're pretty good, pretty confident, we can take down Austria, get gold, money, we can finally have a currency like system instead of no longer being bankrupt. That doesn't turn out well. The Austrians and the Prussians all declare war on France, and they're slowly eating away at France, and that's not good. And But they eventually start winning because Napoleon Bonaparte, and I'll talk about him in a few seconds. Robespierre eventually gets too powerful. He decides to he gets to the point where he's getting rid of anyone who's not precisely with him. He gets rid of his political allies. He gets rid of the calendar. He gets rid of Christianity. He gets rid of religion. He changes the names of the streets. He changes everything, and he even and this gets so much that everyone hates him because he's just starting to everyone thinks he's sort of like he's pretty high up there. He even makes a cult called the Cult of the Supreme Being, and one day he gets there and he acts as if he's sort of a god-like figure, and everyone's like, okay, this is not good. So they eventually have him arrested. And he's about to be executed the next day, or taken to court and tried, but he decides to kill himself. And because Robespierre, great orator, not a great shooter, he tries aiming, but I don't know. I think like this, he probably got the repulse was just too much for him, or he just ended up shooting his jaw, and his jaw kind of fell off, or was just hanging, and so basically, he was arrested and everyone mocked him, and then he was taken to the guillotine, and he was executed on July, I believe it was, July 27th, 1794. And with that, people say the French Revolution sort of end there. So now we're going to talk about Napoleon, and it's the last thing we're going to talk about, like, last sub-thing, so you know what I'm talking about. So Napoleon, he was born in Corsica, and if I still have my map of Europe, that's pretty close to France. And so he grows, he becomes a respected general, and in 1798, he goes and he invades Egypt. And the British Navy are like, boy, you ain't going nowhere. So he loses, and basically he said, when he goes back to France, they're like, oh, did we win the battle? And Napoleon's like, yes, we definitely won that battle. We definitely did. We kicked their butts. We definitely did best, and the British were kind of screaming like little sissies, and we did it. Vive la France! And everyone's like, ooh, yeah, Napoleon, we love you, yeah, whatever, So he was BSing everything, and in 1804, before then, he becomes the first consul, a la the Roman Republic, where you had consuls, and he even and he made made himself first consul for life. And then he eventually made a constitution where he was the emperor, and that happened in 1804, and he made the Napoleonic Code. And then he goes and fights Austria, Britain, and Russia, and he basically, at first, kind of sucks, but then, he's getting there. Actually, in 1803, he gets his butt kicked, because he tries to basically institute slavery in the island of Haiti, and the Haitians are now upset. They lead a revolution, obviously called the Haitian Revolution, and basically Napoleon's chances of making a North American France, if you will, fails, and that's why he sells all the North American land that he owns to Thomas Jefferson in 1803. And then that leads to the Lewis and Clark expedition and all that stuff, but anyway. October 1805, he wins the Battle of Trafalgar, I believe, and that's at the Strait of Gibraltar. Oh, no, I think he loses, actually, but he wins another battle, and Battle of Trafalgar, he loses, he BS's it again, but whatever, and everyone believes him, and Then he wins another battle, and he wins, and at the very end, by 1810, he owns most of Europe. The only parts that he doesn't own are Russia and Great Britain. And he basically owns all that, and he says no one can control or can trade with Great Britain. So Great Britain's losing money dramatically. There we go. And he has this kind of policy of putting relatives as head of the government for the countries that he conquers. For example, he puts his brother as the head of Spain. He put his brother-in-law as the president of Haiti, and he got killed because of disease. But whatever, sucks for him. And then in 1812, he decides, if I'm so great, I can invade Russia. Big mistake. He goes in with 500,000 soldiers and only comes out with 10,000. And if that's pretty hard for you to understand, I'm just gonna write it out. It goes down to that. It's very small. So that kind of sucks for him. And he's when he comes back, everyone figures out, okay, you suck. We don't like you anymore. He's exiled to Elba, which is basically an island really close to France. And he's there. And a year later, in 1815, he escapes. He gets his army back, becomes emperor again, goes to fight at Waterloo, and guess what? He loses again. And so he's taken to St. Helena, where he dies in 1815, and he's sent by this is under the orders of the Duke of Wellington of England, so it sucks for him. So that's basically it, guys. That's Mr. Lammer's 10th grade Western Civ in 3 episodes. I'm not sure how long that lasted. That probably lasted more or less an hour, I think. I'm not sure. So thank you so much for watching these videos. I really had a lot of fun making them, even though I had scripts, but whatever, you know what, it was totally worth it. I don't even care if none of you guys watch it, as long as one person in this entire grade is enjoying and actually learning from these. That's all that really matters, honestly. I just want you guys to learn. There's really no benefit for me. I do this all for you guys. I mean, you guys really make history part of teaching, you need to have students. And so by watching this, you're kind of my students, and I like this because I love teaching. Everyone says I am a really good historian. I don't like to toot my own horn, but I really I love teaching history, as you can tell, and I hope to be a historian one day, and I hope to maybe teach kids who are as interested in history as you might be. And so that's really what I want to say. Thank you so much for watching this. Mr. Lammers, thank you for giving me this opportunity to express my love of history. Thank you everyone for watching this. I hope future kids are watching this. No pressure, Mr. Lammers, but please send this out to your friends, family. I really want to teach, and I hope this video really helps you guys in preparation for Tuesday's final. And don't worry, guys. You might seem worried, but if you get the vocab down and you get the essay question, just have an outline and just memorize that outline. Believe me, you'll be fine. All right. So please, peace out. Love you guys. Wow.